We agree, this house looks like it came straight out of a science fiction movie. And yet it's simply an earth house covered with a lime and hemp plaster, just like our ancestors used to do. Michel built this 100% self-sufficient 15 square meter Kertère hut himself for only 5,000 euros. But contrary to appearances, the construction really wasn't easy, since it took more than 5 years to complete this project. We went to meet him so he could tell us about his experience.
The idea for a Kertère hut actually came about completely by chance through social media. So one day Marie-Hélène was browsing on Facebook and saw some images of a Kertère hut, a short film, I think. Well, I don't remember where that presentation came from. So it catches her eye, she looks at it, she does some research, she clicks on the links that were attached to the report, and she realizes that actually the Kertère company was looking for places that could host training sessions. When you host a training session, you'll have a Kertère hut on your property by the end. The cost involved, basically for the Kertère workshop, is the cost of materials and the cost of accommodation and food. So here we're working with an accommodation structure, so I had space, we closed for a week. And well, I don't really count that as a cost. It was something very friendly, kind of like having 15 friends at home. Of course, it did cost something, but it was really nice. The atmosphere was really great. Then there's the cost of materials, material cost. In this Kertère, the main cost is the window frames. It's a choice we made not to use reclaimed window frames. We could have used reclaimed window frames and that would have lowered the cost even more. Here we used houblon. The door of the Kertère was made for us by a carpenter in the village. We told him we want a door that no one else will have, rounded, bean-shaped, something original. After that, the rest is lime, sand, hemp straw and the top ring beam. All that costs almost nothing. For the basic materials, we're probably under 5,000 euros, let's say the construction materials. After that, it's really personal choices about what you want to do. The sky domes cost a bit. Then someone who knows a bit about it might have found a way to do it with a salvage window. Well, probably. So, for the sky dome, the choice we made was to buy a sky dome from the store. We could have made it ourselves, but we wanted to be sure it handled the waterproofing issue properly. Well, the advantage of using systems like this is that they're designed to open. So, in addition to seeing the sky, there you go, we can have a bit of ventilation. If we ever lit our stove badly and smoked up the room a bit, it can always be useful. And also, because it's always nice to have a little bit of fresh air coming in, there you go. So we have the same sky dome in the main room and also in the bedroom. Now in the bedroom, the special thing is that when you're lying down, you can see the sky dome, so you can see the stars. We chose to use bathroom tiles for some of the openings. There are colored ones. They're nice and fit in well, but they cost more. I've seen a lot of Kertère who, instead of that, use colored glass bottles, for example. They embed those instead. It's really nice. So that's another way to do it with a very, very different cost. That's also completely possible. We also chose round frames because it's much easier to fit round elements into a spherical structure than rectangular ones. You could say that the main cost of this Kertère isn't the price of the materials, it's the time we spent on it. If you imagine the cost of our labor, it's a lot of time. It was spread out over 5 years now. When we say that, it can obviously sound very, very daunting, but it's not 5 years of non-stop construction. It's 5 years with breaks due to our job as hosts, which means that During the busy season, we also have a lot of other things to do. And then it's also related to a few incidents that meant sometimes we take 2 steps forward, then 1 step back. We chose a Kerterre with 2 domes. So there's a first dome that's 2.5 meters in diameter and a second dome that's 3.6 meters in diameter. The first dome was built, you could say, pretty quickly since it was built during 2 Kerterre workshops. That means that for about a week we have 15 Kerterre trainees here to learn. So there's a part that's theoretical lessons in the morning, for example, where we're not building, but right after that we go into construction. So that's still a lot of manpower for 5 days. It goes really, really fast. At the end of this first training session, we had the first dome without the coatings and without the door and window frames installed. But let's say the whole structure was there. And the sky dome had already been installed at the top. That was the only window unit that had been installed. Second Kerterre training session, same as before, 12 to 15 trainees. Again, about a week, 4 or 5 days. And there we end up with a Kerterre where the frames are installed and the plastering is finished. Terminé. So at this stage, things go very, very fast because there are a lot of people. For the second dome, we make the choice now. There you go, we've done 2 workshops. We feel like we have mastered our subject. So we decide to go for it on our own, telling ourselves, well, we'll do it as a participatory workshop. So we invite a few friends, some people who responded to ads on the internet who were interested. And same thing, we set out for a little week telling ourselves, well, at the end we'll have our second dome, it will probably be permanent, etc. And then things don't go as planned at all. At that moment, it's during the All Saints' Day holidays. So late October, early November, it's very humid. We're building under tarps, we've stretched tarps above us, and nothing is drying. And after, I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 days, well, after the time we had agreed on for this, actually not only were we not finished, but in fact, everything collapsed. There you go, we save. Come on, 30 to 40 centimeters of wall, which is basically nothing. We have the foundations, the base in slate stone. There you go. So at this point, first of all, it's a big blow to morale. And then we realize that this is really not the right season at all. We're in Corrèze, we're not in Spain. It's no longer the time to build Kerterre walls. The weather will never be on our side. So we remove everything that has fallen, we leave our 30 centimeters of wall, and then we forget about it until the following spring. So, and things like that have happened to us several times. That's why we say it's 5 years. But it's 5 years with breaks in the winter at times when we actually can't do anything anymore. Construction is slower than we'd like in the summer due to our work and the peak tourist season, so it's a bit unusual. When we should be at the Kerterre, we're instead helping our clients. So it's a bit complicated. And then when we decide to rebuild this second sphere using a slightly different technique, this time we say, well, we're going to make a geodesic dome out of wood underneath, which can be dismantled from the inside and will serve as our structure. That's not usually how it's done. Normally you can do without it. But we decide to take this precaution. And above all, we decide to do it over time, when we have the time, and not to involve anyone else but our family. We feel a bit bad for having taken up people's time for a week to teach them how to make a Kerterre, and then they left with nothing, just a pile of hemp and lime on the ground. So we said we'll do it on our own, and so it took much, much longer to build this calmly, to wait for the right season, and and then to wait again for the coatings, well, since you have to do them earlier at the beginning of spring. So that can mean spending another winter waiting for the right season to do the coatings. So that's what explains it. Every year or every 2 years, we chose to apply a lime wash on the Kerterre. It helps to fill in the tiny micro cracks, and there's also a very aesthetic aspect to making it white again. So here you can see what it looks like. I did it not very long ago. What you can see right next to it is that I redid this last year, and actually it's very damaged. Why? Because I used the wrong kind of lime. I used air lime instead of using hydraulic lime. And actually, well, it didn't hold. Everything just flaked off, so it's all got to be redone. So, for example, this is the mark from a finishing coat that was done on a day when it was too hot. It was drying too fast, so between what I did the day before and the next day, it had dried too much. The coat from the day before had dried too much. And so I couldn't merge the two coats together. So that's the size of what I was able to do at one time in a single go. And then you can see those joints here. And the parts that were done in more suitable weather, meaning neither too humid nor too hot. There you go, here for example. You don't see those scars on this part here. I think I was a bit naive and maybe a bit too ambitious. Well, I didn't see the difficulties. I didn't see it. Now it's something we take part in discussion forums, for example, on the internet among people who are interested in Kerterre, and I raise a lot of awareness about it. Increasing the diameter of a Kerterre by 10 doesn't just increase the difficulties by 10, it's much more exponential than that. On our second try at the second sphere, we did it entirely as a family without involving anyone else. It's because I didn't feel up to bringing people in again. Because I think that my first participatory project that I led on my own, well, actually, I'm not sure I taught anything to the people who were there with me. So I'd say I taught them the mistakes not to make, but I'm not sure I taught them how things should be done. That's it. If we waited a winter before returning, it wasn't due to the season, but because we weren't sure we'd return at all. It was and still is very significant. So after building the walls, we were, let's say we had reached the level of the door, we were maybe at 1.50 meters, and there was only about 30 to 40 centimeters left. It wasn't the cost of the material that fell to the ground that upset us, it was the time we spent on it. That's it, it's the people we showed it to. That's it, it was very, very, very disappointing. We made mistakes. I made posts where I tried point by point to explain, for example, how we analyzed the collapse of that wall. What for us had led us to that point, that seemed very important to me. Another big setback we had at one point was when we had finished a good part of the finishing coats. Winter came over that, a cold snap hit, and all the finishing coats cracked. By sharing our experience, it's also reassuring for others to know that if there's a problem, we'll solve it together. We talk about what we can do and how each of us managed to get through it. And then it's interesting because behind these forums, well, I participate in the official forums of the company Kerterre. So behind it, there's the company Kerterre itself, which also gains knowledge from it. It's a kind of participatory knowledge that's being built, and they too might, well, I know that, for example, when it comes to coatings, they've changed their approach. Since 2020, when we did those workshops, and that's great. I think the way to make a Kerterre still isn't set in stone today. You can't just suddenly decide overnight, I'm going to build my Kerterre. Or you have to accept that you'll need to recreate this experience that's over 20 years old. So you have to accept the idea of making a lot of mistakes if you really want to do everything by yourself without taking part in workshops or joining participatory construction projects. When you start with the first dome, you don't ask anyone for permission. A lot of people do that for their Kerterre. As for us, we rely on the fact that we have a footprint of less than 5 square meters. And so it doesn't require any special request. That's it, we rely on that, even though we know we'll want to make it bigger later. But, well, we're going with that because we don't know if we'll be able to do it. We aren't sure if we can build this second dome, if we'll have the courage, skills, or time, so we don't know and aren't asking anyone for anything. We're out in the countryside, so we just say, we'll see. We begin the second dome right after the first, moving quickly and still without asking anyone for anything. But when we build the second dome, after our collapse, we start the permitting process. Originally, it's an agricultural land where we requested the establishment of a special zoning area. It's a process that is done at the town hall as part of a modification of the local urban plan. And so this special zoning area for tourism purposes allows us to build accommodations for short-term rentals. So it's a bit different from a Kerterre that would be lived in year-round under a standard building permit. In our case, it's a application to do the work. To do things properly, I made an appointment with the person in charge of urban planning in Thule, and I presented the whole project to him. He was really intrigued. I remember him saying, if you had asked to install a yurt, it would have been easier for me. Since the planning office gets a lot of those now, we know how to handle it, that's it. But here, what you're showing me, I've never seen that before. Kerterre, what does that mean? Where does it come from? How is it made? And at that moment, he actually asked me to provide a few more administrative documents than what a regular work request requires. He asked me to make insertion diagrams, little sketches, things like that, which I gladly did. That's it, because there was curiosity about what we were doing. That's it. It was difficult in the context we were in with Sekal tablets. It was hard to refuse the request for work. But yeah, I really felt a kind of curiosity about this project. And so from that moment on, well, we were able to build our second sphere while staying well within the rules. To start, I want to say that the whole way of building a Kerterre mainly relies on one thing. You'll have to deal with it. The question of water, humidity, leaks, rain, and actually after that, almost everything else follows from it. This Kerterre is built on a circular gravel bed. You dig a round trench, you put in a drainage pipe, you add stones, the drainage pipe, you send it a bit further so that all of it drains outside. So the goal is, if there's water at the base of the Kerterre, it drains away and nothing comes back up into the wall. Hemp is a plant material, which means that if you expose it to water, it's going to want to absorb it, that's for sure. And lime is a product that isn't waterproof. Lime can be, if the coatings are well done, water repellent, but it's not waterproof. That means if water sits on lime, inevitably the lime will end up absorbing it. That's just how it is. So we'll need to prevent water from rising up into the walls. So once we've made this circular gravel bed, the first row of the Kerterre is actually a row of stones. On top of this row of stones, we have 2 rows of slate laid in a staggered pattern. So here we're using slate because we're in Corrèze, and well, it's the land of slate, so we had plenty of natural slate available. It could have been done with reclaimed tiles or maybe with flat stones. Well, the point is that our slates are waterproof, so they're also going to stop the rising damp. And on top of that, we make them stick out from the row of stones, which creates a kind of little skirt so that when water comes down from above, it will roll off this little skirt and move away from the base of the Kerterre. Once we've done that, we can move on to the plant-based stage. So the plant part means starting to work with lime, sand and hemp. So at first we're working with hemp straw mixed with a blend of lime, sand and water. So this is the first wall. This wall is about 10 centimeters thick. We try to make something nice and harmonious, but at first it's very, very rough, and the sphere, we try to make it as well as possible, but it's all done by hand. There's no mold underneath, that's it. So that's how it might be. The next step is to start again from the bottom and apply a coating made of hemp shiv. It's hemp shiv, lime and sand mixed together again. It's a coating, ours can be between 10 and sometimes up to 20 centimeters thick in some places because it serves as insulation, but it also helps to fill in, as we say. That is, it helps to give a nice rounded shape back to the Kerterre. If ever there's a dip in our dome, it means that's a spot where if rain falls, it will stagnate there and be absorbed again. So it's not just for looks, that's it. So once we've applied this hemp shiv plaster, we move on to a second plaster, which we call the lime sand plaster. Its purpose is precisely to isolate the plant material from the outside, from water, from rain. So this one isn't meant to be very thick. It will be, let's say, 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters at most. Let's say about 1 centimeter thick to separate it. And the last coat is the finishing coat. This is the coat that will be water repellent if it's done properly. Well, it has to be done properly because it's the one that will provide that feature. So this is a plaster. So again, with sand and lime, the proportions are a bit different. And above all, what's very important is that the sand will be sifted to be very fine, so you can make what's called a dense plaster coat. So water can roll off it. That's it. There you go. We have 3 plasters on the outside. So what we're trying to do as much as possible is to keep water, especially rainwater, away from the Kerterre and the base of the wall. So here we have gutters that serve this purpose as well. Well, with this part here that's above a window, it prevents water from falling directly onto the window and seeping in around the window edges. Meanwhile, we also guide the water where we want it to go. But with this little detail here, for example, that you can see, which is the drip edge, it's that little lip you see there, which makes it so that the drop that falls here can't run back along like it would if we hadn't done this and end up running down the wall. And then, in the same way, we have the little skirt, which was originally made of slate and then ended up being covered with lime. And so when the water runs here, it helps to direct it away to keep the water from falling directly at the base of the building. So here you can see it's hollow underneath with an overhang like this that keeps water away from the building's base. And inside we have another coat of hemp render, much thinner than before. It doesn't serve as insulation because it's not thick enough to act as insulation, but it will have both an aesthetic aspect and again it will fill in the gaps. If we've made small holes or little things that aren't nice inside, well, it's with this plaster that we chose to paint over them. So obviously it's a lime paint. In fact, it's actually a colored lime wash with ochres, meaning it's water, ochre powders and aerial lime. Here we use 2 different ochres to create 2 colors. And there you go, as far as the construction goes, we've seen all the layers. So, this is the first dome that was made, which is exactly the right size to fit a round bed inside, with a diameter of 220. Fortunately, we didn't make it any smaller. So we find the arabesques we made here, this time with a purely aesthetic purpose. They're not functional at all, except for the ones we made a little deeper, which can serve as small trays, but otherwise the whole space is taken up by the bed. We use those arabesques again. Then what we did here is we decided to embed, if you will, part of the furniture into the Kerterre. We thought it was nice, so we added these little shelves. So here there's a little trick, which is that we inserted a wooden board, actually, that we covered. So people in the world of La Kerterre say, we splatched it. That means you can make furniture like this. We could have taken a small wooden piece of furniture and then splatched it, which means we're going to cover it with hemp fibers and lime until it's completely covered. For this Kerterre, we chose wood heat from the very beginning. So it was actually important to do it from the very beginning because the flue for the stove is embedded in the Kerterre. So from the start, we had to choose the diameter and the location, that's it. So we chose a boat stove, a very small wood stove. Which are the stoves you can find? Well, in boats, in converted trucks, in tiny houses, in things like that. It's more than enough for this type of dwelling. Especially since, let's remember that hemp shiv is a very good insulator, so we have a house that keeps the heat well and stays very cool in the summer. So it's beneficial from that perspective too. As for the electrical part, yes, there is electricity in this house. Actually, it's a solar panel system. So we have 3 solar panels connected to 2 batteries with everything needed, the inverter, the converters, all of that, which power this house and also a cabin we have elsewhere on the property. And that's enough to have the electricity we need, the lights, the outlets, that's it. We also chose a house that's not connected to the water supply, like I think many houses like this. So we use water jugs for clean and dirty water with a pedal-operated sink. Our little boat stove, there you go. It's very small, but more than enough for the space we need to heat. You can see some small marks here, for example, from a leak we had at the chimney joint up top, which has been fixed since then, but it left a small dark stain on the paint. And then, well, there you go. We've equipped ourselves well so we can cook comfortably. There you go, the little devices that are really a place where we've always found inspiration or the necessary materials. Actually, it's the stores that sell things for boats or RVs. So this is actually a little RV cooktop that ended up here. The little foot pump sink that works with the clean water and dirty water system. You pump. Clean water comes in here, then flows into the dirty water container. And then, well, when one is empty and the other is full, we take everything, we empty it, we clean it, and we start the cycle again. Afterwards, for everything that's not directly included in the Kerterre, like toilets, access to washing machines, a dryer, showers, and so on. So what we did is we have dry toilets available for the 3 homes that are at the back of the property, so they're shared, as well as a kind of sanitary area that we've called the wash house because it's everything related to running water. That's it. So at the wash house, you'll find showers, a traditional sink where you can also refill water containers. It's a little bit further away. That also fits with the philosophy of saying, well, the resource is precious. The water I need to drink is here, it's in the Kerterre. I'll get the shower water from a bit further away, whether I shower daily or every other day. When we decided to build a Kerterre and thought of creating a small village of unique accommodations for the estate, we agreed to make a second Kerterre. And then, when we saw how things went with the first one, we said, no, we won't make a second Kerterre. So if I rephrase the question and ask if I would make a second one, no, I wouldn't make a second one. It was too hard. Now, we're still very happy with the results, so maybe if we had to do it again, we would still do it, but I would want to do it with all the knowledge I have today. Not do it again from scratch, that's it, because I think there are definitely a few mistakes we wouldn't make again now. I can talk a lot about the Kerterre because I have a lot to say. Because it was an experience, really, good or bad, well, it was an experience. And for me, talking about it to the clients who come, to people who, clients or not, you know, if someone comes and asks, do you have an hour? I gladly give them a tour of this Kerterre. Both because we're proud of what we've done and also because I don't want to hide that it was difficult to do. What I like, for example, is to start by telling people, you know, come spend a night inside, try it out, take a look. And if you feel like doing this, don't start on your own. Go do a workshop, really. Go do a workshop with Kerterre. There are people who will tell you it's expensive, they ask. In the accounts, I don't remember if it's 300 or 400 euros for a week. But that's really nothing at all. All these questions about minerals, plants, water, etc. Well, you learn that. It seems really hard to me to just watch and say, I'm going for it. It's not just construction, it's an experience.